Welcome to today's video where I'll be talking about how to build intimacy in your relationship. And really, I hope that this video serves as a guide to deepen your connection with your loved one. I'm Casey Lepper. I share different topics, tips, and insight into improving mind, body, spirit, and today, relationships. It's really crucial to talk about intimacy and connection when you're talking about a relationship because those two things serve as the energy that builds the relationship. And when we lack these aspects, we tend to feel pretty dissatisfied in our relationship. Today's video, I'm going to dive into what intimacy is, what elements are needed to experience intimacy and connection, and some practical strategies to enhance your connection and your intimacy in your own relationship. So first, let's start with understanding intimacy. Intimacy encompasses a range of different interpersonal connection, emotional bond, vulnerability, anything that's shared between you and another person. That's intimacy. And it really goes beyond just physical or sexual activity. That's what a lot of people think about. But it is about deepening your emotional, psychological, and spiritual connection with someone. And intimacy can be shared and expressed in many different forms. So think about emotional intimacy is when you share feelings, thoughts, and vulnerabilities with someone in a trusting and supportive environment. It involves empathy, it involves understanding, and generally mutual respect. This is why people benefit from therapy, coaching, or some sort of mentorship because we feel a sense of emotional intimacy with someone, and we feel like we're heard, understood, and resonated with. Then we have physical intimacy, and this is referring to the closeness and touch between people. And it can range from holding hands, hugging, cuddling, to sexual activity. And it's a physical expression of our affection and connection. This is what most people think when they think intimacy. We also have intellectual intimacy. This is deep conversation, sharing ideas, stimulating each other in an intellectual way. It can be where you're meeting of the minds and you have a sense of mental connection. Spiritual intimacy is being able to share your spiritual beliefs, values, and experiences with someone. And this allows us to feel a sense of connection in a really deep and high way. It gives us a sense of unity and almost transcendence. And in my experience, this type of intimacy tends to be lacking in most couples I work with, which I think is so important to recognize and then work on, because this intimacy really fosters a sense of long-term shared meaning and gives you a sense of direction. So all those forms of intimacy are really important. To some couples, they might prioritize one or two. It's important to have an understanding of all of the different types of intimacy because truly, emotional intimacy is something that lasts so long. And while a lot of people might focus on physical or sexual, long-term studies show that in relationships to be satisfying and grow with us long-term, we need to be able to have that emotional intimacy satisfied. So being aware of all those different types and being able to ask yourself, in my relationship, which ones are we really strong in and which ones are we really weak in? Overall, intimacy really fosters a sense of closeness, a really deep sense of trust and connection between us and another person. And it really enhances your feelings of satisfaction and connection. All forms of intimacy require open communication, empathy, and vulnerability to really cultivate and maintain. And as you can see, it is complex. There's lots of different elements to it. And so, like I said before, if you ask yourself which ones aren't so strong in your relationship and you work to focus on those, then you might get a sense of how satisfying the relationship is when all forms of intimacy are covered and prioritized. So those are the different types of intimacy. Now I want to speak a little bit about communication, because without good communication, it's really difficult to feel connected. It's difficult to intimately connect with someone if we have poor communication. When we aren't able to communicate, a lot of times we have misunderstandings, conflict, frustration, and resentment. So it's really essential in building a healthy relationship and building your intimacy and connection to have good communication. I did a video about communication linked here. where you can dive a little bit deeper into this topic and understand the elements that make good communication and what skills you need to be able to be the best listener. So, good communication is essential to intimately connect in all of those ways. Because if you don't feel like you're really connecting sexually with someone, you have to be able to talk about it. And if you're not a good communicator, it's really hard to talk about intimacy. Now, let's talk a little bit about trust building. Trust is the glue that holds intimacy together. You can't really get close to someone unless you trust them, right? When you feel like you can trust someone, you end up feeling safe. And so you're not worried that they're going to judge you or spill your secrets. You're not afraid that they're going to hurt you. That really gives us a sense of security that allows us to be vulnerable, which is so key to intimacy. Imagine sharing your deepest fears or wildest dreams with someone that you don't trust. It's not going to feel safe. It's not going to feel good. And it's not going to allow you to drop any sort of wall that you have to be able to say that to someone and feel like they're going to get you. They're going to try to understand you. So trust is really, really important to improve intimacy. And if you don't trust your partner or you have a difficulty trusting someone, I'm going to give you a couple quick practical tips to be able to build it. So, like I already said, communication is key. You have to keep those lines of communication open. Be honest, transparent with each other. Don't be afraid to talk about your feelings, your concerns, or your worries. Remember, active listening is really, really important. You want to be able to speak your mind, and you always want to be able to be a good active listener. Trust is built through consistency. So you have to be reliable and follow through on your promises. You want someone that shows up for you. You show up for each other, whether it's the big commitments or the small favors. Consistency shows that you're dependable and you're trustworthy. You also have to be able to set boundaries and respect them. So respecting our boundaries and making sure that we're clear about them, that allows both partners to feel really safe, really respected, and as a result, trust naturally grows. It sets the foundation for a healthy relationship. Finally, you want to be vulnerable. It's okay to let your guard down. Being vulnerable with each other fosters intimacy and it really deepens your connection. Share your fears, your insecurities, and your dreams. It shows that you trust each other enough to be your authentic self. If all of those things are happening, then intimacy is a lot easier. But if you're in a relationship where you don't trust, where you don't feel safe to be vulnerable or to communicate, when you feel like there's not any listening or any empathy, that might indicate that something is not working with the relationship. And maybe it's your perspective, maybe it's something you need to heal, or maybe you deserve someone who gives you those things that I just talked about. Like I said, intimacy is necessary for long-term satisfaction in a relationship. And we don't have it if we don't feel safe, if we don't feel loved or cared for in a relationship, then it might be time to leave. Okay, so we've talked about the different types of intimacy, what it is, and the elements like communication, vulnerability, and trust that help build your connection. Building intimacy and staying connected does take commitment and it takes consistency. And by doing it, it ensures that your relationship is growing in the long term. Our relationships, when healthy and satisfying, give us so much. It gives us a place to connect, to reflect, and progress. So if you're weak in emotional intimacy, then start creating space where you're asking each other deeper questions. In the comment section or in the description section, I'll have a list of different questions that I think it's really good to ask your partner. And when you have a list of questions, sometimes it can feel a little easier to be able to answer or to ask. Sometimes we really don't know how to ask the right questions. And so by engaging in some sort of conversation and dialogue with our partner, asking deeper questions and being able to answer with vulnerability, that can really help to open up your emotional intimacy. For intellectual intimacy, I think it's really nice listening to, say, a podcast together. And maybe you drive separately to work or you listen to it at separate times, but coming together and being able to talk about what you think, reading books, and even TV shows, really stimulating TV shows that allow you to think differently or build up on ideas can be a way that you express your intellectual intimacy with each other. If you do choose like a movie or a TV show, make it be one of substance. So not just drama-filled reality, but more like a documentary, something that is stimulating your own mind. And therefore, when you have those ideas coming up, you can share with your partner, and then being able to build off each other can be a really, really nice way to connect. Physical or sexual intimacy is about the full range of physical expressions that we use to show someone that we care for them, that we love them, that we're there for them. It can be a handhold. It can be taking 5 minutes out of the day to actually cuddle with each other, or it could be prioritizing your sex life. Sometimes when we're in a relationship long-term, we get kind of stagnant with how we're showing up intimately, especially in the physical way. Show that you care. Kiss, hug, touch, have sex, do the things that make you feel like afterwards you feel even closer to your partner. Spiritual intimacy can be built in many, many different ways. For my husband and I, we go to different meditations, different classes, different series, workshops that allow us to get connected to our own spiritual self. And through that place, we're able to emotionally connect, we're able to physically connect, and we're able to intellectually connect. So it could look like going to church. It could look like Bible study, reading scripture, praying together, doing different spiritual rituals. Anything that allows you to get connected to that part of you that is really magical, really spiritual, and being able to sit in that space with your partner and being able to experience that authentic highest self together is such a wonderful way to build intimacy. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want a little bit more or have any questions about intimacy, just leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Again, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.